How can a man know if a woman is being a chameleon or not? Just assume she is. I hate to say that, but you need to. They can transform into whatever it is that will get them what they want. More feminine, more Christian seeming, more political, all types of things that the man will say, oh wow, she likes the same things I do. But it might not be so. Hi, welcome back to Far From Eden. We're continuing on with our series of this book written by this nice lady. Well, I don't know how nice she was. She's pretty forthright, that's for sure, on her opinions of the dynamics between men and women. This book was written in 1971, and this woman took a lot of hate for it because they don't want you, women, and the overlords don't want you men to know the secrets. And for decades, you didn't. That's over now. Men are waking up to what women could, what we are, and how we sort of shapeshift. And we've covered a chapter already where it's hard for a lot of men, the ones who are still living in symptom, to understand the extent to which we will lie. We can invent an entire personality. It's bad. We're all actresses. And it doesn't mean that every woman is acting all the time. The point is, you won't know which ones are. Gone are the days when we would have families that knew each other for generations. And so you weren't just meeting a stranger online or even a stranger in public where you really didn't know their history or their family's history. You just know what they tell you about themselves. And that's a dangerous place to be, especially for a man, because at the end of the day, if she convinces you to get a government marriage contract, you're done. You're cooked. Because now you've signed something that says if she's unhappy for whatever reason at all, you can possibly be kicked out of your own home and only see your children 2 weekends a month. It's unacceptable. But as I said, men are waking up. They see the dangers, and they see how that government contract just is in her favor in all ways. And what point is it for a man to do that? Because if he's Christian, in my opinion, why do you need the government involved? It makes it like it's just a state thing, a non-religious thing. I think it cheapens marriage personally to say, oh, the government's going to be in charge of it. It seems like you're putting government in the place of God, but that's not the point of this today. Our next chapter is called The Mask of Femininity. So as I read this with you guys, I'm only slightly perused. We're going to get into a little bit of the chameleon aspect, how they do it, why they do it, and how you can see it. Because a lot of men are new to this red pill. They've just swallowed the red pill. And they're still a little in shock of what we women are capable of. And they need to know, not just in case they're going to risk it and go forward trying to find a woman, but to understand their past and how they got duped before. There is virtually no difference between an unmade up, bald, naked woman and an unmade up, bald, naked man, except their reproductive organs. Any other difference between them is artificially produced. I don't agree with that. I definitely don't agree with that. I think we are very different in the way that we think. Ms. Villar we've seen so far with what we've read, she seems to think that that's all a social construct. That the only reason women would like dolls and family and all that stuff is because that's what they're, told they should like, which is very, in my book, quite leftist. A man becomes a man because he develops his intelligence and through its development has productivity. his appearance changes very little. A woman becomes a woman by means of gradual stultification and by deliberately transforming her external appearance. And this differentiation between the sexes is prompted exclusively by women. That's true. I mean, men don't go out in makeup. They don't put on a costume, they don't put on like a costume. As we have said, a man is considered masculine only after a series of manipulations on the part of women. A woman, on the other hand, is the author of her own transformation and produces femininity by means of cosmetics, hairstyle, and clothes. I think it's more than that. It is an outlook. It is mannerisms. This reminds me of how, let me say this carefully. When certain people don't like how they were born and then they want to switch it up, and so they put on a dress and lashes and all this stuff, and they say, look, I'm a woman. And a lot of women say, that's the costume of a woman. The costume of a woman doesn't make you a woman. It seems like Ms. Vilar is making the argument that it indeed does. This femininity, synthetic in origin, consists of two different components: emphasis on secondary sexual characteristics and distancing herself by means of masks. Woman makes use of various types of masks in order to make the difference between herself and a given man as conspicuous as possible. The first component serves to make her desirable to man, the second to make her mysterious to him. She herself thus creates the equivocal, unknown opposite sex, making it easier for him to accept his enslavement. Thanks to the wide range of possible transformations each woman can offer a man, and a real woman varies her looks just a little every day, she keeps him in a state of constant bewilderment. I think you guys are done being bewildered in that way. You're like, I'm not impressed by your mask. While he is still trying to find yesterday's woman in today's, she gains time to achieve her own ends. She will maneuver the man into an untenable position, all the time skillfully distancing his attention from the stench of a rotting mind beneath the pleasing mask. Yes, the mask, the mask and all of that fakery can lure men in, and they excuse little signs that her character is lacking. And that's a very dangerous thing for men. They can get lured in. It's sort of like a Trojan horse. It's like the pretty face and all this stuff, and the act will pull them in, and they will excuse things that they should not excuse, because character really needs to be first when you're trying to vet a woman. And it's pretty hard to get past that mask. It's pretty difficult. It's there for a reason. What does a mask do? It hides things. That's why men these days are like, I don't want the makeup. I don't want all the makeup. I don't want all the fakery. And I think that's why. They want something real, and they want to get down to, who are you? Do the women even know? They don't know that they've cultivated the character and what their worldview is and what their morals are. They think they're acting on a very surface level. And that's another reason men are like, I'm out. That's not what I want. They're not demanding women change at all. Men are just like, all right, well, you have the freedom to do that, but I also have the freedom to not want it. Men don't have to accept a woman just because. And we need to switch it back to when women were chasing men, when women were like, oh, I wonder who's gonna want me for marriage, not let's make some bait to lure him in. Backwards. Like many things in this world, it's backwards. Unmade up, without curls and bracelets and necklaces, women are not yet really present. This explains why they do not mind running around in curlers or with cold cream on their faces. It is not they at that stage. They are still occupied with the process of becoming them. They succeed with this sort of make-believe all the more easily because they are not hampered by any kind of intelligence. Yeah, honestly, she's more critical. Actually, it's crazy because she's more critical of women in a certain way because she does not value them as proper wives and mothers. She doesn't seem to value that role at all. She wants them to be just like men, and have those same goals and have those same standards for themselves and have the same type of intelligence, etc. And like I said, we're just not. We are different. It's strange to me that she wouldn't understand that biologically is just true. We're not the same. But I don't know, 1971, maybe that was the case in her, maybe that's how she came to believe it. And that was very much like, well, she didn't realize that once women had the freedom and were pushed into careers, that they would absolutely choose ones that were more people-oriented, like teacher, nursing, things like that, caregiving. She couldn't have known that that's what it would have been, that after the world tried to really make women just like men, we're all wearing pants, there's a lot more things that women do now than they did in 1971 that are similar to men. And yet, we didn't gravitate towards engineering, or as she would say, like aerospace, whatever. She was obsessed with space. No effort is so great that woman will not make it in order to achieve this metamorphosis. No makeup can cost too much or take too long to put on. Still true. It's probably worse now, when it is a question of the final product, which will distinguish them so markedly from men. By rubbing cream into their skin, they can make them smoother than men's. Our skin is naturally smoother. Our skin is softer for a reason. And I think it goes hand in hand with our lack of ability to endure the elements. Our body temperature doesn't regulate as well as men's do. And I do think our skin is different because men were made. Don't hate me. Men were made for work. Women were made for work too, but a different work. And our bodies and our minds are both made for those roles. It's just true. And you don't have to believe in God to see that. Let's see. Their hair is curled or worn long for the same reason. They do not put black mascara around their eyes for the sake of beauty. It is to make their eyes differ from male eyes. Strange, mysterious, disturbing. I really don't think women think that much about that. I certainly have never thought that, but maybe that's subconscious. All this was the original purpose of the female masquerade, but it has almost been forgotten now. In the course of the last few decades, the average middle-class married woman has developed from a rather busy domestic servant into a kind well, this is a word I've never seen before. So she's developed into a kind demi-mondaine. Okay, demi-mondaine. Got it. I understand the word now. Well padded with the comforts provided by men. Yes. The middle of the 20th century, women were so pampered, especially white women were so pampered. Those women were the most spoiled women in all of humanity, in all of the time that humans have been on Earth. They had every comfort and so little responsibility. They weren't expected to get a job. They weren't expected to homeschool their children. They were just their leisurely housewives. They had soft life, big time, big time. As a result of this, her former games, which were for the specific purpose of transforming her appearance, have become an end in themselves. And since amusing themselves with their own bodies is their favorite game, and well-to-do middle-class wives frequently have nothing else to do, they occupy themselves in this way. What is more, they are encouraged to do so by men. Right. So much symptom, so much simpery, and especially in the middle of the 20th century. And they created the monsters that we have today. Absolutely, it did. After all, it is men who manufacture their cosmetics, design their fashions and hairstyles, and make a living by doing so. They do their best to provide these women with new variations, helped by the editors of women's magazines and by women's radio programs. In fact, women have almost succeeded in producing a totally new feminine culture, a sort of women's arts and crafts. Funny. Oh, in this sanctuary, they live among themselves, disturbed by none, being led to heights, or rather into depths, where no man can follow, apart from those specialized slave laborers mentioned above. I think a lot of those were sort of overlords that wanted to create the horrible culture that we have today. We are the downward, free fall of society. This is going down. There's no empire in history that was in this much debt and had this kind of a culture, you know what I mean? That was like, we're going to turn it around. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be pessimistic. The best I think we can do is wake up as many people as possible. Spread the truth where we can. Take care your lips stay smooth, advises. For example, one well-known magazine, this to a woman who complained of badly chapped lips: brush your lips daily with a wet toothbrush and use a lip salve with regularity. Never use pearl lipsticks. They settle more easily into the cracks. Don't forget to take your measurements, the editor goes on to advise all women. Uh-oh, was she fat shaming? Your pelvic dimensions should never be more than 9 inches larger than your waist, nor 3.5 inches more than your bust. Yeah, they wouldn't say that nowadays, would they? Body positivity, everybody. Always brush your eyebrows into becoming sweep before outlining them in pencil, and never draw them in with one straight arch. Instead, follow each hair with a separate stroke. It will look completely natural if the lines are vertical nearest the bridge of the nose and carefully toned with 2 different colors, for instance, gray and brown mixed together. Always keep a mirror in your kitchen. Back when women were in the kitchen, to help you control your face, you will notice if you frown or make faces while you are cooking, or if your hair is in disarray. Isn't that funny? I mean, in my silly mind, I'm like, try to look good for your husband. Just try to look good for him, But this is just, I just want to look good for myself. I just want to be admired by all. And I think that's what it is today. I've often, when women are like, I dress up for myself. No, you don't. You don't dress, you don't have your makeup on, and you don't dress like that when you're your living room watching Netflix. Right? But do they do it for the men? I figured it out. Okay, no. They don't do it for their man. They do it for all the men. Women want to think that all the men desire them and would fight over them. I think that's one of the ways that they keep their man in line. It's a manipulation tactic. so that in their mind, they think, well, my man needs to know that, if he doesn't treat me right, I'll pick another one. And I just realized the line of that song. I think it's Beyonce. You must not know about me. You must not know about me. I could have another you in a minute. Yep. They follow them religiously, measuring their pelvic. Oh, sorry. Women are grateful for all these rules. They have not enough imagination to think them out for themselves. Goodness gracious. They follow them religiously, measuring their pelvic dimensions, brushing their lips, outlining their eyebrows, and hanging up little mirrors in the kitchen to avoid wrinkles caused by thinking. Well, I would have been taught that that's vanity, and that is wrong. But I don't think many little girls are taught that or were taught that. Don't be vain. Don't be prideful. You have to nip that in the bud when the little girls are younger than 5. I know that might sound crazy to a lot of people, but I know little girls. And interestingly, Ms. Vilar has said several times about before they're 5 or once they're 5. And I'm like, I knew that was the cutoff. I knew it was. Yay for a college dropout. And when they have done all this, more fun and games are waiting. There are actually women today who bathe their chest daily in cold water for 10 minutes. What? It makes them firm. All right. There are women who oil their bodies all over every morning and not following medical advice. There are those who twist their hair around 30 odd curlers every few days and spend at least half an hour making up their eyes. And as they, thanks to all these efforts, which a man feels are totally absurd anyhow, grow stranger, more incalculable, and more feminine with each passing day. It is often precisely this type of woman who attracts the most willing slaves. And I think that is the point. I've attracted all of these simps. Change it to that. And now you have to fight for my attention and vie for me. In the meantime, the game goes on. Anyone who wants to join in the game to keep up with the coterie has to observe more and more new rules. For women's demands on each other are enormous. True story. Men have long since dropped out of the game. They're dropping out of the game right now. So, wow, sometimes when I'm reading this with you guys, I'm like, she saw the future. Like I said, I don't agree with her on everything, but her insights are quite astounding sometimes. Men are out of the game. Whew. Wow. I got so taken aback, I lost my spot. I know I had it saved. Oh my goodness. The opportunities for entertainment offered by one's body have increased enormously. Ew. And will go on doing so though of course, it is inevitable that many women cannot keep up the pace. These will return to their other source of entertainment, the home. Yeah, they don't do that nowadays. To them nowadays, home is oppression. Except I saw a meme the other day, it was perfect. And it said, girl math. Spending 10 years to become a doctor only to realize I just want to be a stay-at-home wife. How many are figuring that out? Because we're made to be actual wives. Actually, not just like stay-at-home 20th century housewives, but, actually doing things. Gardening, homeschooling, cooking from scratch, mending clothes. Looking after a community. Is there a widow? Is there, who needs help? Taking care of ailing family members. So you don't ship them off to some assisted living or whatever, or they have a home nurse or whatever. Women used to do that stuff, used to take care of stuff like that. Don't anymore because it's terrible oppression. And now they're like, please oppress me. Oh my goodness. In the meantime, the game goes on. Anyone who wants to join in the game to keep up with the coterie, I think I read this, has to observe more and more new rules. Yeah, I don't know why I said. All right. As the amount of money available to women depends on the husband's income, women are divided into classes. There are those who have an excellent mask, those whose mask is good, and those whose masquerade is merely adequate. Isn't that true? Like they're trying out for a certain level. The first group become the idols of all the others. But like somebody like famous like Kim Kardashian or, that all the other ones try to emulate, but maybe don't get close enough. And thanks to the constant efforts of their public relations organizations, provide a kind of vicarious gratification for them. Even for a woman with an average type of mask, the rules are getting more and more complicated. If she goes swimming, for example, her makeup must be waterproof, her legs and armpit hairless, her body oiled, and her hair completely hidden by a cap covered with rubber flowers. Oh, they would never do that nowadays. They would never put a cap on their head. They just keep their head out of the water. They just keep the head out of the water. Or they just make it fashionable to have like wet hair look hot. But they figured out how to adjust the masquerade. You know what I mean? For the supermarket, a matte base with a dab of rouge and light brown mascara is the thing. Funerals require pale makeup to enhance the effect of her black lace mantilla and an almost invisible lipstick. For a few minutes at a cocktail party, the preparations of dressing and makeup will take hours. There was a time when only one shade of eyeshadow was sufficient. Now it must be 3, white, gold, and green, for example. Her lips must be cared for with salve, lip balms, mother of pearl lipstick, and powder. False eyelashes, no longer stuck on in one strip, must be carefully gummed in position, one by one. Yeah, now they're getting them where it's like an eyelash extension, where it's, not permanent, but they don't have to do it every day. We've lost it. We've completely lost it. Women are like putting on a totally fake face that is more natural. Her own coiffure must be embellished with an additional hairpiece. Yep, they do that today. And both must always be freshly shampooed and curled. For eye makeup alone, she really goes into detail about all this, for heaven's sakes. Let's get through all this. Following our basic essentials, false eyelashes, a special glue, tweezers, or putting lashes in place, mascara, eyeliner, 3 shades of eyeshadow, 2 shades of eyebrow pencil, powder for the brows, plus it's a specifically angled brush for application, a small brush for the eyebrows, oil-based pads for removing makeup, and special cream to soothe the eyes, right? And then they still use a filter. They still use a filter. So some man is trying to, date a woman. He does not know what she looks like. She's got the filter. She got all this. Then she's got the filter. Then she shows up. She looks a little worse than the filter. But if she were to wash all that off and take off the eyelashes and all that, you're like, you wouldn't recognize her. You guys have seen the videos on TikTok where it's like before, or it's like all the makeup, and then before and afters are crazy scary. Crazy scary. Men adore their women and want them to be divine, exotic, indecent, that is, feminine. At the same time, they have no desire to watch their hours of slavish, narcissistic primping and are getting more and more uncomfortable. They will never understand the pleasure a woman takes in housework. They don't. But it's interesting to think that they did back then, because what we were taught is that it was slavery and they hated it and they were so oppressed. But Ms. Villar has talked several times about they loved it. It's almost like someone's lying to us, and I don't think it's Esther. They don't tell us the truth about our own history. They don't. It's like 1984. They tell us things about history, but we weren't there. And it's awfully convenient. And what does 1984 say? He who controls the past controls the present, and he who controls the present controls the future. I'm paraphrasing, but that is absolutely the case. So that tells me it's highly likely, and because I know that some things definitely were not true, that the whole housework thing and women being in the house and stuff, that they hated it and they were oppressed and they wanted to have careers too, I think that was a lie. I think propaganda came in and told them they wanted careers, like the propaganda told me not only that I should have a career, not only that that housework and all that stuff was oppressive and gold digging, and so any woman worth her salt would not just want to do that life, but also we had this responsibility to go out and find our purpose, which would be our career, give everything to it, and that would fulfill us. And that we would be improving the world in some way. That was the spiel they gave us women. And I went to school in, 80s and 90s. And that's what they told us. So the women that she's talking about are the parents of my generation. Why didn't they tell us? Why didn't they tell us, hey, why don't you be a mother? Why don't you put your energy into your family? Why didn't they tell us that? They didn't. They will never understand the pleasure a woman takes in housework. And to them, the makeup process is just as degrading. Every man knows that he himself could not care less if a woman wears 3 colors of eyeshadow or 1, just as he knows he has no need of lace curtains or rubber plants in the living room. Exactly. Men are simple. They don't need all this stuff to make them happy. In fact, I think it takes away from their happiness, because most men, to me, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, seem to want truth. In all of like rubber plants and all these adornments, it's not truth. So I think it rubs men the wrong way. They want meaning. But he appreciates that other men or society demand this of a woman. And he feels intensely sorry because he believes himself to be responsible for this degrading state of affairs. Right. Oh, this poor woman. He gets home from the plant, right? He's worked hard all day. He's braved the traffic and everything. And he comes home and he feels sorry for the woman who's been able to stay home all day and sit down and watch her soap operas and eat her bonbons. What a trick. What a massive trick they pulled. And by they, I mean women. Thanks to his primitive needs, he believes that he is making woman into this object of his desires. He believes he is suppressing all her worthwhile qualities, which are in fact nowhere to be found. As usual, he is missing the truth by a hair's breadth. It is in his own interest to deny the fact that this whole development is tantamount to the highest level of feminine culture, and that women do not, by means of fashion and cosmetics, make themselves into objects, but rather their ceaseless preoccupation with such matters corresponds to the mental activities of infinitely primitive subjects. What an interesting insight. And there is something else he does not know. A woman does not only recreate herself from day to day, so to speak, getting further and further away from her true self. Exactly. Why would you do that? Why on earth would you create a mask and a personality and all that so far away from yourself? Unless it's because you want to trick someone, because you want them to do something, like manipulation. It's disgusting. getting further and further away from her true self just for the sake of entertainment. Oh, it's not for entertainment. It's to get you. It's to get you and get things from you. This cult satisfies her minimal need for a religion as well, a need which, as we have already seen, depends on her low level of intelligence. I disagree. Look, here's the thing. Women aren't stupid. We just use our intelligence differently. And unfortunately, one of the ways we use it is to manipulate you guys. Terrible. And here's the thing, Ms. Vilar, I would say, how stupid can women be if we're capable of manipulating a man? I'm not saying we're smarter than men. I'm just saying men should not underestimate us. That is a big mistake men make. You underestimate our ability to lie. You underestimate our ability to act. You underestimate our ability to manipulate. Because you guys wouldn't do that. It wouldn't occur to you that someone would do that. And I have talked to men in life, real men that I know, and that is the case. They didn't see the lies and the manipulation because it would never occur to them to do that. Like, who creates a whole persona just to advance their goals and attain whatever, money, status, comfort, security? Well, who would? Women do all the time. All the time. And men constantly underestimate us. Not anymore. You guys have seen the woman behind the curtain. And it doesn't look anything like what we put forward and what we pretend to be. It makes me so sad to say this out loud because I know there are men listening right now that are finding this out for the first time. And their minds are going, oh my God. Because I've had so many of you reach out to me and say, my whole life makes sense now. I couldn't see it before. Now I understand what my ex-wife was doing. Now I understand why I've had so much trouble dating. Yeah, it's not you guys. It's not you, buddy. It's sort of good news and bad news, right? It's not you, but good Lord, look at what it is. The only way to win is to not play the game. That's just exactly it. And so many men say the juice isn't worth the squeeze. It's not. And who's getting squeezed? You are. You are. This is a rather long chapter, but we're going to push forward because I don't want to split it in half. It is too important. And we're getting to the really good stuff now. It's like a book and you can't put it down. So keep going with me, you guys. And if you're appreciating this video, please hit the like button. I always forget to say it. And if you're appreciating the series, another reason to hit the like button, hit it twice. And I really appreciate all the subscriptions. It's really helping get this message out. It's important. I want to warn men and I want to educate them so that, again, like I said, they go, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't really understand what happened to me. But now I do. And I will tell you that YouTube and the overlords and the powers that be, if you will, don't want you to know this. I can't tell you how many of these videos have been demonetized. And I sit here going, what in the world did I say? So, but I don't care. I'm going forward. The message is the most important thing. The message is why I'm here. All right. Get very passionate and I lose my spot. And there is something else he does not know a woman does, not only recreate, oh God, sorry. This is translated from German, so sometimes it's a bit awkward. And there is something else he does not know. A woman does not only recreate herself from day to day, so to speak, getting further and further away from her true self just for the sake of entertainment. This cult satisfies her minimal need for a religion as well, a need which, as we have already seen, I read this already, but this is intense, depends on her low level of being, brainy. Every step in this process of transformation requires a totally neutral, critical observation of self. Totally neutral, critical observation of self, okay? It forces a woman to regard herself constantly with the eyes of a female stranger, and to test the result of her labors in terms of that onlooker's eyes 1,000 times a day. If the transformation is a success in those critical eyes, if it passes criticism, she can, still in the eyes of this stranger, indulge in unrestrained self-admiration. Well, this just reminds me of like Instagram culture and TikTok culture. And that was, goodness gracious, this was 53 years ago. So that is prophetic. Thanks to this trick, she is, as it were, in a position to worship at her own feet, and is therefore, to a large extent, exempt from every system designed to satisfy a man's pleasure in non-freedom. Systems such as ideologies, religions, or glorifications of some other being. Right? Because if you're so stuck on yourself, if you're worshiping yourself, then all of those things are irrelevant. And it seems to me that in a lot of marriages, especially around this time and since, the woman worships herself and the man worships her. And now we have churches that seem to worship woman. That's what it seems like. Women are so preoccupied with self and with beautification that men have come to the logical conclusion that even if women paid any attention to them, they would never be considered handsome. There is an old saying that men do not need to be good looking. Many men will, without a second thought, repeat this piece of wisdom. But even if he made an effort, woman would never find man handsome. How interesting, because we live in a day where they do try to say, oh, this man's hot or this man's whatever. But for a very, very long time, like until 5 seconds ago, men's looks were a little irrelevant. They really were. And Kevin Samuels would often say, he doesn't have to be handsome. It's not his job. And I agree with him. I totally agree. Man is so much more than that. That's what I'm saying. But even if he made an effort, woman wouldn't not handsome. How could woman who takes such pleasure in her own ridiculous masquerade appreciate an unmade up, conventionally dressed man? What else would this be but the first step, the raw material, the preliminary sketch for a further stage in human development? I think the whole idea of we want a man who's handsome. Remember the whole metrosexual thing? I think it was with the millennials it started, where men who cared about their fashion, cared about their grooming, all of that stuff, they were metrosexual. That was leading us down a bad path. That was celebrating all the men primping and stuff like that. And it was teaching women through propaganda that that's attractive. And it's historically not, because why? Because it's not masculine. I'm not saying you shouldn't be well groomed. I'm not saying you shouldn't take care of yourself. But metrosexual thing took it to another level. It feminized men. And it told women that's what you should like. And I think a lot of women married men like that. And guess what? They divorced them too. Because they don't respect men like that. They don't. At the end of the day, they don't respect them. And you guys know that. You absolutely know that. You can't win for losing, though, because she'll marry a simpy one because, he doesn't demand anything or expect anything of her. And she's like, oh, Gosh. He's like, Gosh, you're pretty, right? But she doesn't respect him. But she thinks the ones she does respect when she gets in a relationship with him, that he's controlling and narcissistic and stuff. So you cannot win. In a sense, this implies that all men must be ugly in women's eyes, and this frees her to choose accordingly to his income and the standard of living he may be able to offer her. It's a true story. The problem is, what is she bringing? It's not enough to say, I am the table. Men don't need a table. They don't need a table. They can make a table. You being a table is not enticing to them. Particularly sensitive men seem to have realized this recently and are trying to become beautiful according to the standard of women and for once make an impression on them by means of their outward appearance. Interesting. So it started here. Me over here, I think it started with the metrosexuals. Well, how dumb am I? It started here. This is why we dig. This is why we do literary archaeology, even if it was only 53 years ago. Because we find stuff that we go, wait a minute, I don't think they've been telling us the truth this whole time. In the main, however, these attempts to break away from convention have been doomed to failure. They kept trying though, didn't they? In the first place, men could hardly achieve something overnight which women have been cultivating for centuries. Man's long hair is never as silky, nor his skin as delicate as woman's. His clothes will never be as exquisitely extravagant. And in the second place, the vast armies of enslaved men have thrown these deserters out of their ranks and shut them off from earning a proper living. Not anymore. Today, there are few men who wear a mask. They don't. Those who do, poets, painters, rock musicians, journalists, actors, hippies, photographers, need just this sort of disguise in order to earn their money, rather as a kind of contemporary court jester. Of course, most of these men have a woman around, someone to put his earnings to immediate use. A poet has his muse, a painter his model, a rock musician his groupie. All of these women live off men. If all men took to growing their hair long or to wearing chains with pendants around their necks, which after all is possible for every 100 years or so, there have been slight changes in men's fashions due to the changed working conditions. That's true. Their long hair would be cut to a uniform length, and those chains around their necks would become a replacement for ties, just as discreet and inconspicuous. Wow. I'm learning so much to see what it was like back then, see what it was like through her eyes. It's, just like I was quoting or paraphrasing 1984, understanding our past helps us understand our present, and that helps shape our futures. So if men can understand how this was all going on for a long time, and that makes everything now make sense, they can make good decisions going forward and possibly say, I am out of this game. I'm going to protect myself. I'm not signing a government contract. There's power in the truth. Absolutely is. So thank you guys for joining me on this. I am so enjoying reading this book with you guys. We're all learning together, painful as it may be sometimes. But anyway, please protect your peace, even throughout all of this. It's more important than ever to feed your soul. I love you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.